I never thought silence could be so loud. But sitting at that mahogany dining table, surrounded by faces I'd known my entire life, the silence pressed against my eardrums like I was drowning underwater. My mother wouldn't look at me. My father stared at his plate. And my brother Marcus, the golden child, the favorite, the one who could do no wrong, he just smiled. That same crooked smile he'd been using to manipulate our family for 28 years, that's when I knew. Everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed, every moment I'd put this family first, it meant nothing. They'd already made their choice. And it wasn't me, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it really started. 3 months earlier, on a Tuesday that seemed so ordinary I almost didn't answer the phone. Daniel, we need to talk. It's about Dad's company. Marcus's voice had that edge to it, that tone he used when he wanted something. I should have recognized it then. Should have known. Our father had built Hartwell Construction from nothing. Started with a single truck and a dream back in 1987, worked 18-hour days, missed birthdays and holidays, sacrificed everything to build something that would outlast him, something he could pass down to his children. To us, I'd been working at Hartwell since I was 16. Started in the warehouse, loading materials in the summer heat, then estimating, then project management. Worked my way through every department while getting my business degree at night. By the time I was 32, I was CFO. I knew that company inside and out. Every contract, every client relationship, every dollar that came in and went out. Marcus. He'd shown up 3 years ago after his tech startup failed. Dad gave him a VP title and a corner office because that's what Dad did. He bailed Marcus out, again, like he'd been doing since. Marcus was 17 and crashed his first car while drunk. Or when he was 22 and needed Dad to pay off gambling debts. Or when he was 25 and his revolutionary app went bankrupt. But this time would be different, Dad promised. Marcus had matured. Marcus had learned his lesson. Marcus was ready to contribute to the family legacy. I wanted to believe it. God, I wanted to believe it so badly. What about the company? I asked, balancing my phone against my shoulder while reviewing the quarterly reports on my computer. We were having the best year in company history. Revenue up 37%. Profit margins the strongest they'd ever been. I'd restructured our contracts, renegotiated with suppliers, brought in new project managers who actually knew what they were doing. Think we need to expand. Go bigger. I've been talking to some investors about a massive mixed-use development project. Hotels, residential commercial space. It could triple our revenue in 2 years. My stomach tightened. Marcus, we've talked about this. Overextension killed half the construction companies in this city during the last recession. We grow steadily, sustainably. That's how Dad built this. Dad built this 40 years ago. The industry's different now. You have to take risks to make real money, calculated risks. Not gambling everything on one project. Just think about it, he said. I'm putting together a presentation for Dad. At least look at the numbers before you say no. I should have said no right then. Should have trusted my instincts. But I loved my brother, despite everything. Loved him the way you love someone you grew up with, someone who knew your worst moments and best memories. So I said I'd look. The presentation arrived 2 days later. 67 slides of glossy projections and architectural renderings. The Vista Grand Project, he called it. A $200 million development on the old steel mill property downtown. Hotels, condos, retail space. It looked impressive. Too impressive. I spent 3 days going through every number, every assumption, every projection. And the more I dug, the worse it looked. The timeline was impossibly aggressive. The cost estimates were 30% below market reality. The revenue projections assumed a 100% occupancy rate from day one. The financing structure was a house of cards that would collapse. The moment anything went wrong, and things always went wrong in construction, always. I scheduled a meeting. With Marcus and Dad, brought my own analysis, my own projections. Showed them what would really happen if we pursued this project. In the best-case scenario, we'd break even in 7 years. In the likely scenario, we'd be bankrupt in 3. Dad listened carefully. Asked good questions. He'd always been a good businessman, even if he'd been a distracted father. He saw the flaws. I could tell, but Marcus just smiled. You've always been risk-averse, Daniel. That's why you're a good CFO, but it's also why you'll never be CEO, Dad. I know Daniel means well, but he's looking at this the old way. The world's changed. We need to change with it. The fundamentals of construction haven't changed, I said. Neither has basic math. This isn't about math. It's about vision. The meeting ended without a decision. Dad said he needed time to think. I thought that meant I'd won. That logic and reason and actual experience would prevail. I was so naive. 2 weeks later, Dad called a family dinner. Mom made her famous pot roast, the one she only made for special occasions. I brought my wife Sarah and our 2 kids. Marcus came alone. He'd just gotten divorced for the 2nd time. But we didn't talk about that. Dad stood up after dinner, cleared his throat in that formal way he had. I wanted to gather everyone together because I've made an important decision about the company's future. My heart rate picked up. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table. After 38 years of running Hartwell Construction, I've decided it's time to step back. Not retire completely, but transition to an advisory role. Let the next generation take over. This was it. Everything I'd worked for. 32 years old, and I'd be running a $50 million company. Continuing Dad's legacy. Making him proud. Naming Marcus as CEO effective next month. The words didn't register at first. They bounced off my brain like bullets off Superman's chest, because they couldn't be real. They made no sense. Marcus had been at the company for 3 years. I'd been there for 16. Marcus had never successfully run anything. I'd been CFO for 4 years, had turned around our finances, had built relationships with every major client we had. Wait, I heard myself say, what? Dad looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Pity. Daniel, you've done excellent work as CFO. You'll continue in that role, reporting to Marcus. I need someone with vision leading this company into the future. Someone willing to take the bold steps necessary to grow. Bold steps? Dad, I showed you the analysis. That project Marcus wants to pursue will destroy us. That's exactly the kind of thinking I'm talking about. Always focused on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. That's called due diligence. That's called responsible business management. Marcus stood up, placed a hand on my shoulder. Daniel, I know this is a surprise, but we're going to do great things together. I'll need your expertise, your knowledge. This doesn't change how valuable you are to the company. I looked around the table. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Sarah's face had gone pale. My 8-year-old daughter Emma looked confused, and Marcus just kept smiling that smile. I left. Didn't finish dinner. Didn't say goodbye. Just took my family and drove home in silence while my wife occasionally glanced at me with concern, and my kids asked questions I couldn't answer that night. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I'd give Marcus a chance. Maybe Dad saw something I didn't. Maybe Marcus had really changed. I'd stay on as CFO, do my job with excellence, prove through my work that I deserved to be there. Looking back, I realized how stupid that was. How much I was still hoping for their approval, their recognition. Still trying to earn something they were never going to give me. Marcus's first day as CEO, he called an all-staff meeting. Announced his vision for the company. Talked about the Vista Grand project like it was already approved. People were excited it sounded good if you didn't understand the numbers. Growth, expansion, opportunity. Who wouldn't want that? Then he announced organizational changes. New department heads. His own people, mostly. People he'd brought in from his failed startup. People who understood his vision. And he moved my office. Gave my corner office to his new Chua guy named Trevor, who'd never worked in construction a day in his life, but had an MBA from Harvard. Knew how to use words like synergy and optimization without laughing. My new office was interior. No windows. Down the hall from the break room so I could hear the coffee machine grinding all day. Small thing. Maybe petty. But it was a message. Know your place. I stayed professional, kept doing my job, kept the company's finances in order while Marcus made promises to clients we couldn't keep and spent money we didn't have on consultants and advisors who told him what he wanted to hear. 3 weeks into his tenure, he brought me the Vista Grand project proposal again. I need you to make the numbers work. The numbers don't work, Marcus. I've shown you this. Then get creative. Adjust the assumptions. There's always flexibility in these projections. You're asking me to lie to the board? I'm asking you to be a team player. I refused. Told him I wouldn't put my name on fraudulent financial projections. He smiled, said he respected my integrity, and brought in an outside CFO consultant to run the numbers. The consultant's report, which Marcus paid $30,000 for, said exactly what Marcus wanted it to say. Amazing how that works. The board approved the Vista Grand project by a margin of 5-2. Dad voted yes. When I asked him why, he said, I have to trust my CEO. That's how leadership works, even when your CEO is wrong. Especially then. That's called loyalty, Daniel. Maybe if you showed more of it, you'd be sitting in that chair. Those words. God, those words hit me like a physical blow. 20 years of loyalty. 20 years of showing up early and staying late. 20 years of putting the company first, putting the family first. And that's what it got me. That night I told Sarah everything. How I felt betrayed. How nothing I did mattered. How Marcus had somehow convinced Dad that vision mattered more than competence. She held my hand and asked me a question that changed everything. Why are you still there? It's the family business. It's my inheritance. Dad built this for us. He built it for Marcus, she said gently. You're just there to make it work while Marcus takes credit. I wanted to argue. Wanted to defend my family, but I couldn't. Because she was right. Over the next month, I watched Marcus run Hartwell construction like a personal piggy bank. Expensive client dinners at restaurants where the wine cost more than our workers made in a week. A company car upgrade from a practical Ford to a Tesla. A complete office renovation because Marcus needed a space that reflected the company's new direction. Meanwhile, the Vista Grand project moved forward. Ground broke. Contractors were hired, many of them Marcus's buddies, who put in low bids and then submitted change orders that tripled the cost. Corners were cut. Inspections were rushed. I documented everything. Kept copies of every questionable decision, every budget overrun, every safety violation. I didn't know what I'd do with it. Just knew I needed to protect myself. For months into Marcus's reign, I got called into his office. Trevor the MBA was there too, sitting in the chair that used to be mine. Daniel, we need to talk about your future at the company. My stomach dropped. My future. You've been resistant to change. Negative about new initiatives. I need people who believe in the vision. I've done my job. The financial controls I've implemented are the only thing keeping us solvent while you hemorrhage cash on Vista Grand. See, that's the attitude I'm talking about. Always negative. Always focusing on problems instead of solutions. I am the solution. I'm the only person in this company who actually understands construction finance. Marcus leaned back in his chair. My chair end steepled his fingers. Dad and I have been talking. We think it might be time for you to explore other opportunities. The words hung in the air between us. He was firing me. My own brother was firing me from the company my father built. The company I'd given everything to. You're not serious. I'm very serious. We're prepared to offer you 6 months severance. Very generous considering you're an at-will employee, not an employee. I'm family. I'm an owner. You own 8% of company stock. Dad owns 62%. I own 15%. Mom owns the rest. Dad supports my decision. So unless you want to make this ugly, you left the threat hanging. Make it ugly, and I'd get nothing. Accept the severance, walk away quietly. And at least I'd have something to show for 16 years of my life. I wanted to flip his desk. Wanted to scream. Wanted to do something that would make him understand the magnitude of what he was taking from me. But I didn't. I stood up, looked him in the eye, and said, "I'll need that offer in writing." Of course. Professional to the end. That's what I've always admired about you, Daniel. I walked out of that office and drove straight to my father's house. Found him in his workshop, building something from wood like he used to do when we were kids, when he actually had time for us. "Did you know Marcus was going to fire me?" He set down his chisel. Didn't look surprised. "He discussed it with me, and you approved it."
Heck.
"He gets to make these decisions." "Dad, he's destroying everything you built. Vista Grand is a disaster. We're $6 million over budget already, and we haven't even poured the foundation. The numbers I showed you were right. The timeline's wrong. The costs are wrong. Everything's wrong. Marcus says you're being obstructionist. I'm being realistic." "No," Dad said, finally meeting my eyes. "You're being jealous. You wanted to be CEO? I get it. But you don't have what it takes. You're too cautious. Too afraid to take chances." Marcus's vision. Marcus has the courage to bet big. Marcus has a history of failure. You have a history of mediocrity. You're a good CFO, Daniel, but that's all you'll ever be. Some people are meant to lead. Others are meant to follow. The sooner you accept that, the happier you'll be. I felt something break inside me. Some fundamental belief about family, about love, about my place in the world. My father, the man I'd tried to impress my entire life, is the man whose approval I'd chased like a desperate dog, thought I was mediocre. Thought I was a follower. I left without another word. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't look back. Sarah was waiting when I got home. I told her everything. She cried. I didn't. Was past crying. I was somewhere beyond sadness, beyond anger. I was in a place of absolute clarity. I'd spent my entire life playing by their rules. Being the good son. The responsible one. The one who cleaned up Marcus's messes and asked for nothing in return. And it had gotten me nothing. Worse than nothing, it had gotten me contempt. So I stopped playing by their rules. That night, I made a list. Everything I knew about Hartwell construction. Every secret, every shortcut, every questionable decision Marcus had made. Every safety violation on Vista Grand. Every fraudulent number in the projections. Every corner he'd cut. I had copies of everything. 16 years of documentation. Because I was the CFO. Because I was careful. Because I was the mediocre, cautious person Dad thought I was. Then I started making calls. First to Jameson Construction, Hartwell's biggest competitor. They'd been trying to hire me for 2 years. Offered me a position as VP of Operations. 20% more money. Actual respect. I accepted. Then I called every major client Hartwell had. Not to steal them, not directly. Just to let them know I was leaving. Just to mention, casually, that I had concerns about Vista Grand, about the financial stability of the company under new management. Just planting seeds. Professional courtesy? Some of them asked questions. I answered honestly, factually, didn't exaggerate, didn't have to. The truth was damning enough. Then I called the state construction board, filed a formal complaint about safety. Violations at Vista Grand. Attached documentation, photos, inspection. Reports that had been falsified. Then I called the investors in Vista Grand, the ones Marcus had courted. Sent them my original analysis. The real numbers. Asked them if they'd seen these projections before committing their money. They hadn't. Then I did something I'm not proud of, but I'm not sorry for either. I called the IRS, because when I'd been reviewing the books one last time before I left, I'd noticed something. Some expenses that didn't quite add up. Some personal purchases on the company card. Some very creative accounting around Marcus's compensation package. Nothing I'd done in my entire life had felt as good as hitting send on that email to the IRS whistleblower office. I submitted my formal resignation the next day. Didn't give 2 weeks' notice. My contract didn't require it. Just walked in, handed Marcus my letter, and walked out. He looked relieved. Probably thought I was going quietly. The first domino fell 3 days later. State inspectors showed up at Vista Grande, shut down the project pending a full safety review. Marcus called me, screaming, accused me of sabotaging him. I just reported what I saw, I said calmly. You know that integrity you said you respected? I'm exercising it. The second domino fell a week after that. 2 of Hartwell's largest clients decided not to renew their contracts, cited concerns about company leadership and financial stability. Marcus lost $4 million in revenue in one afternoon. The third domino took a month. The investors in Vista Grande pulled out, all of them, demanded their money back under the fraud clauses in their contracts. Because I'd given them evidence that the projections they'd been shown were materially false, Marcus tried to find new investors. No one would touch it. Word spreads fast in the construction industry, especially when the former CFO is now working for your competitor and DDIA, occasionally mentioning his concerns about his former employer's practices in casual industry. Conversations. The fourth domino was the IRS audit. That took 3 months to start, but once it started, it was thorough. Very thorough. Turned out Marcus had been treating the company like his personal ATM in ways even I hadn't fully documented. I watched it all from a distance. My new job at Jameson was everything Hartwell should have been. They valued my experience, listened to my advice, made me part of the decision-making process. Within 4 months, I'd been promoted to Senior VP. 6 months after I left, Hartwell Construction was in serious financial trouble. Vista Grande had drained their cash reserves. The loss of major clients had decimated revenue. The IRS penalties were substantial. The investors were suing. The state had levied massive fines for the safety violations. Marcus called me, begged me to come back, said he'd made mistakes, said he needed my expertise to fix things. I laughed, actually laughed. Told him I was busy, told him maybe he should be more creative with his numbers. Told him goodbye and hung up. Dad called 2 weeks later. That was harder. His voice was old, defeated. Daniel, your brother needs help. The company needs help. This is the family legacy. It's Marcus's legacy now. He made sure of that. I was wrong. About you. About him. About everything, please. Help us save this. It would have been so easy to say yes. That's what the old Daniel would have done. Rushed in to save them, to prove his worth, to earn their love. But I wasn't the old Daniel anymore. He told me I was mediocre, that I didn't have what it takes to lead, that Marcus had vision and courage, and I didn't. Is that true, Dad? Silence on the other end of the line, because if it was true, then you don't need my help. You need Marcus's vision, his courage, his bold decision-making. And if it wasn't true, then you chose wrong. You chose ego over competence. You chose the son who made you feel good over the son who made the company good. Either way, that's not my problem anymore. Daniel, please, I gave you 20 years. I gave you everything. You gave me a bad office and a severance package. We're even now. I hung up, blocked his number, blocked Marcus's number, blocked Mom's number when she started calling too. Sarah asked me if I felt guilty. If I regretted what I'd done, I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I said finally. I regret wasting 20 years trying to earn something from people who were never going to give it to me. But I don't regret this. They made their choices. I'm just living with the consequences. Hartwell Construction filed for bankruptcy 8 months after I left. The Vista Grande project was sold for pennies on the dollar to a developer who actually knew what they were doing. The company assets were liquidated. 47 people lost their jobs. I felt bad about that. The workers weren't responsible for Marcus's incompetence or Dad's favoritism. So I called my contacts at Jameson and at other firms. Got interviews for most of them. 33 found new jobs within 2 months. The others I don't know. I tried. Marcus got divorced again. Moved back in with my parents. Last I heard, he was working sales at a car dealership. Dad's retired now? For real this time. The company he spent 40 years building is gone. The legacy he wanted to leave his sons doesn't exist anymore. I should feel bad about that too. But I don't. Because it wasn't me who destroyed Hartwell Construction. It was them. I just stopped protecting them from the consequences of their own decisions. About a year after all this, I got a letter, handwritten, from Dad. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. Daniel, it read. I'm not asking for forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to come back because I know you won't. I'm just writing to tell you that you were right. About everything. About Marcus. About Vista Grand. About what makes someone a good leader. I chose wrong. I chose what I wanted to be true instead of what was true. And it cost me everything. My company. My son. My self-respect. You deserved better from me. You deserved better from all of us. I'm sorry. I love you, Dad. I read it 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and went back to work. Maybe someday I'll respond. Maybe I won't. Haven't decided yet. But here's what I've learned. It's taken me almost 2 years to fully understand it. You can't make people value you. You can't earn love from people who've already decided you're not worth it. And trying to do that doesn't make you loyal or patient or good. It just makes you complicit in your own diminishment. My father wanted me to be a follower, so I was right up until I wasn't. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty for what happened to Hartwell. If I regret the calls I made, the information I shared, the systems I put in motion that ultimately destroyed my family's company. The honest answer? Sometimes. Late at night, when I can't sleep, I think about the workers who lost jobs. About my mother who lost her retirement security. About my father whose life's work is gone. But then I remember that dinner. That silent, terrible dinner where no one would look at me, where my parents chose the son who made them feel good over the son who made them proud, where I realized that 20 years of sacrifice meant nothing. And I remember that I didn't destroy Hartwell Construction. I just stopped saving it. There's a difference. My daughter Emma is 12 now. She asks me sometimes why we don't see Grandpa and Grandma anymore. Why Uncle Marcus doesn't come to birthdays? I tell her that sometimes families grow apart, that sometimes people make choices that have permanent consequences. Someday I'll tell her the whole story. When she's old enough to understand that love isn't always enough. That being family doesn't mean you're obligated to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. That knowing your worth means walking away from people who don't value it. Jameson Construction is thriving. We just landed the contract to complete Vista. Grand bought the project out of bankruptcy for 40 cents on the dollar. Dad's old company is gone, but the building he wanted so badly will still get built. Just with me at the helm instead of Marcus. There's poetry in that, I think. Last week I drove past the old Hartwell offices. There's a new company there now. Some tech startup. The sign is different. The parking lot is full of Teslas and BMWs. All trace of Hartwell Construction is gone, like it never existed. I waited to feel something. Regret, sadness, guilt. But all I felt was relief. Relief that I'm not in that building, trying to earn approval from people who'll never give it. Relief that I'm not cleaning up Marcus's messes anymore. Relief that I'm finally free. So if you're watching this, and you're in a situation where you're undervalued, where your work doesn't matter, where the people who should support you are the ones holding you back, let me tell you something. You don't owe anyone your diminishment. Not your family. Not your boss. Not anyone. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. And sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying them. It's about building something better without them and letting them watch from a distance while they realize what they lost. I'm Daniel Hartwell. I'm 40 years old. I'm Senior Vice President at one of the most successful construction firms in the state. I have a wife who sees my worth, kids who are proud of me, a career I built on competence instead of nepotism, and I sleep just fine at night. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever had to walk away from family or a toxic situation to save yourself? I'd love to hear your stories. And if you found value in this, consider subscribing, because sometimes stories that matter most are the ones about people who finally learn to value themselves.